Hello AP Biology students, we're going to go over the 7th section in Unit 3. And in this section, we're going to transition into the process of photosynthesis. We just got done with the sections on enzymes and learned about how enzymes break down or join things together. Now we're going to learn how those specific enzymatic processes are going to be used in photosynthesis and then cellular respiration. Something I like to get into before I actually get into the content here is the difference between autotrophs and heterotrophs. Remember that autotrophs are organisms that produce their own food, such as plants and algae, and they typically go through photosynthesis. Heterotrophs, on the other hand, are organisms that consume other organisms for food, such as animals, fungi, and bacteria. At the top here, you can see the reaction for photosynthesis. We start out with the inputs here of 6 CO2 and 6 H2Os, which are water, with the addition of light. The products of this reaction are going to be sugar, which is C6H12O6, and 6 oxygens, or O2. I like to cover where the reactants and products are going to leave and enter autotrophs from. Remember that in most cases we're talking about plants and they intake water through their roots. Carbon dioxide is going to enter through the atmosphere, specifically through structures called stomata, and then the light's obviously going to come from the sun. The outputs or products here for photosynthesis are going to be sugar, which is going to be later used for cellular respiration, and oxygen, which is going to leave through the stomata. Now, the other important thing to remember here is that sugar is the main product. The whole goal of photosynthesis is to produce sugar for the autotroph. The byproduct, or is produced afterwards, is oxygen. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference between the main product and the byproduct later on in this unit. I like to mention here these graphs that look very similar to the ones that we saw in the enzymatic factors that influence enzyme rate, where if we see an increase in the saturation of light, carbon dioxide, and water, we're also going to see an increase in the rates of photosynthesis. But then it will level off because there is enough of those reactants going into the reaction. If you look at temperature, as you increase the temperature, you're going to get more photosynthesis up until a certain point when it becomes just too hot for these reactions to occur. I mentioned before, but stomata are the openings on the underside of leaves. In this whole unit, we're going to really focus on plant life. CO2 is going to enter through here through diffusion, and water and oxygen are going to leave. A single one of these is going to be called a stoma, while many are stomata. Lastly, I like to pose the question to my students: the average weight of a redwood is about 50,000 pounds or 25 tons. Why isn't there a large hole around one of these huge trees? Like, where is all that matter? Where is all that stuff coming from? And this question usually confuses the students because they think that matter is going to come from the roots or from underground. But what we talk about is that the majority of a mass of a plant comes from CO2, comes from the atmosphere. The cellulose and different glucoses and monosaccharides that are in plants come from the CO2 they get from the atmosphere. So again, most of the majority of a plant's mass comes from the atmosphere, the CO2 from the atmosphere. And we're going to end with this great meme: are you hungry? I could use a light snack. Perfection.